Hey everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
And I'm Tiff Salcido, today known as Pinky of Pinky and the Brain.
and I am the brain, but if anybody knows Pinky and the Brain, that's an oxymoron. So yes, absolutely. It completely fits. Um
And we're here to
so,
take over the world.
ah, yes, no, that's yours. That's yes, absolutely. So, how have your travels been lately? Where have they taken you since last time we met?
I actually just came back from Mexico. I spent the last little over a week in Mexico in my in my New Mexico house. Well, it's not so new anymore. I've been there for I don't know half a year now, but it's starting to feel more and more like home. The weather there is changing a bit. It was still pretty warm, but no humidity, which was like, oh, like I can't
Nice.
even tell you how
Yeah.
much more pleasant it was. And so I actually got to spend some time at the beach, which is something I haven't been able to do all summer because it's freaking miserable hot there. But I've spent some time at the beach. I got to go hang out and do some activities at the pool. I did some work while I was there. It was so pleasant, but I had quite the adventure getting there though. Quite the
Do
adventure.
tell. Do tell.
So so this time we've been moving like slowly but surely. And so every time we go, we kind of do for lack of a better word, a needs assessment. Like what do we still need here? Like little things. So like we're thinking like tape, we don't have any tape in this house. Let's bring some tape. So this time around, we brought a load of stuff, and we also brought my husband's side by side. He likes to do off roading, and because of the weather was going to be better, he was taking his little car. So we had our truck, our flatbed trailer, the side by side, and some water tanks because our house is off the grid, and so we needed a way to transport some water. So we got water tanks. And when we go through the US Mexico border going towards Mexico, we had to go through secondary inspection, which is very commonplace when you cross the border. Especially if you have a truck and you have an extra vehicle, they always want to make sure that you own the vehicle, you're not, taken out of the country, all that stuff. And you have to pay tariffs and taxes on stuff that you bring in. So um, we're familiar with the process. So we pull over to the side, mind you, big, huge truck, long trailer car. So we're like on the side, not in one of the little slots, but on the side. Um, and this is Mexicali, which if you're not familiar with the region, it's in the middle of the desert and it's about 115 degrees outside. It's
Mhm.
super hot. And it's like not, I'm not even kidding. It's maybe 10 in the morning. So we pull over, we do the inspection, everything's great. We go inside, we pay our tariffs. We're about to leave. The truck won't start. Like it'll turn over, but the truck won't start. Uh, so we're like, oh crap, what is it? So we're trying to figure it out. It wasn't the battery. I mean, it was turning over, it just wouldn't start. So my husband's like, I think the fuel pump went out. So we're like, okay, what do we do? We start calling around, calling for mechanics, calling for tow trucks. We're literally at the border. We're stuck at the site, like right in the Mexico side of the border. So we're there for maybe a good hour. We have ourselves, we have the dog. Our dog is with us. He's like hot. We have, just miserable. So we end up finally, some gentlemen helped us. They were mechanics. They helped us. We pump the thing. I don't know. I don't know the mechanics of it all. But we get the truck started and we find a mechanic. We go to the mechanic in Mexicali. The guy looks at it, says, "Yeah, we can fix it. The only problem is we don't have the parts here. You have to go cross back into the US to get these parts." So we're like, all right, whatever. At this point, the truck was running again. The truck was running. They fixed whatever was wrong, like in the short term. So we get back, turned all the way back around again, still towing the trailer, still towing the side by side. We go back in, we're crossing. Luckily for us, it was like hardly anybody in line, maybe like 10 minutes waiting at this Calexico border crossing. So again, all of the people who like cry about open borders have obviously never crossed at a border crossing because there's nothing open about it. So we're, what was that? You, you're muted.
Which port were you going through in Mexicali?
We're going through Calexico East, Calexico
Okay.
East, which is
Yeah.
one of the less
Yeah.
busy ports.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, I've been through all
Yeah.
of them. There's nothing
Yeah.
open about any of them. So
Mm-mm. No.
here, here we are. We've got like our passports again, the car stuff. Our dog has to have documentation. So we're coming back in. We have one car back in front of us. We're like the next one's in line to the gate to show all of our documents,
Hmm.
and the truck dies again.
Oh my
The
God.
truck dies again, and it won't start. It won't start. Period. It won't start at all. Like at this point, like all the tricks that they had to start it the last few times, just it's done. It's hot. Again, at this point, it's been like over an hour since we left the mechanics, and it was probably like closer to 120. It was like really miserable hot. So we get again really nice people. The people that were behind us push the truck and trailer out of the way. You know, as we get through like customs, they push us out of
Hmm.
the way, and then they end up pushing us to the next gas station, which was really so. I don't know what their names were, but
Yeah.
again, bless you, whoever
Yeah.
helped us. So we finally get parked. We're out of the way because we were blocking the whole border crossing. Nobody could go through. There's no going around, like you block everybody behind you if you're stuck in that gate area. So anyways, we get to the next gas station, and at this point my dog is like he's like can't regulate his temperature. He is so hot. He's been outside, he's been drinking water, we've been wetting him. He just can't cool down. So I we get there, I tell my husband, you know what, sorry sir, you're on your own. I got to get this dog somewhere cool because he's not cooling down and he's going to get sick. So I call an Uber, or I, get an Uber Pets. So again, thank you Uber Pets for existing. I get this Uber Pets to take me to the nearest Holiday Inn, which was like maybe 7 miles away. And I had stayed at that Holiday Inn before, so I knew that they took pets. And so I took the most crazy Uber ride I have ever had in my life. That Uber driver was straight out of like Fast and Furious. I swear at one point we like drove underneath the diesel truck. It was so crazy. I was like, she was wild. It was crazy. So, but we get to the Holiday Inn, but the Holiday Inn doesn't say Holiday Inn anymore. It says Hampton Inn. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, does this Holiday Inn even exist? Uh, it was just a hot mess. So, anyways, I get my dog in there. Everything was fine. We didn't bring any clothes or anything extra with us because we were planning on going just straight to our house, and we have
Yeah.
clothes and toiletries and stuff at our other house. And so um, we're going to have to spend the night here at this point because my husband's got to get the parts. We're not going to try to cross the border again that night. It just was, for lack of a better word, a whole shit show. But got the dog comfortable. He got cooled down. I walked because my husband, I still had left him with the car and the truck and everything at the gas station. I
Mm.
walked like 20 minutes to the Walmart to buy us like uh, underwear and toothbrushes and stuff that we would need for the next day. And then I come back to the hotel. By then he had gotten the car or the truck back and he had gotten the parts. Like everything was fine. But we still have to the next day cross the border again and get the truck fixed. So we did, we did, and everything was fine. And we got to our house okay the next day. Everything was okay. And it only cost us, I don't know. It was the fuel filter. I guess somewhere we had gotten some bad gas or there was
Mm.
something that messed up the fuel filter. But again, 4 hours at the mechanic shop and you know 2,500 pesos later, which I don't even know how much that is, but like a couple $100. We get back, we get to our house, everything is fine. So now we're like we're gonna leave the truck all week, just let it rest. We're gonna take the side by side. So one of the first days we go into town, it's about a 15-minute drive. You can ride your side by sides on the highway there. We're on our way back from getting groceries and the water and all the stuff. And wouldn't you know, the damn band on the damn side by side, it breaks on the highway. So
Oh
I'm
no.
like, oh my goodness. So we like literally coast and luckily find some shade because again, it's still pretty hot there. It's still probably in the hundreds. We find some shade. We didn't have the dog with us this time. He was at the house and everything was fine. But my husband's like, don't even panic. These bands break all the time. I carry an extra one with me. I've got my tools. It took him about 20 minutes or so. He fixed it. We got back on the road and went home. But I just was like, can we be done with like mechanical issues from here on out? Can we just be done?
Yeah.
And we were fine. We got home okay. The truck is running great. The car was fine the rest of the trip. It was fine, but it was an adventure.
Wow.
that was my last Friday and Saturday. It was an adventure.
So how was the trip home?
It was perfect. It was fine. No problem. Like no issues whatsoever. We got through the border. The line was a bit longer that time. Again, we got really fortunate when we went on Friday that it wasn't a long line because, historically border crossings take forever.
Hmm.
But we were in line like maybe 45 minutes. But um my anxiety was like through the roof as we were waiting in line and I kept going like, oh, just let it
Yeah.
be. Just let us get through this and we'll be okay. But it was fine. It was perfect.
The border port going through Mexicali through the town on a Wednesday night, waiting an hour, that's bad enough, right? On a Wednesday night, right? Let alone in the middle of 122 day, right? Gosh.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it was brutal. It was brutal. But I will say this, which is why I wanted to talk about mindset today. Had that have happened to me, let's say like 10 years ago, I would have had a complete and utter meltdown. I would have probably cried. I would have panicked. I would have been upset. I would have like been freaking out. And I was like incredibly chill through the whole experience,
Hmm.
which again, when I reflected on it a little bit later, I was like, oh, wow, I really handled that well. I'm not saying it wasn't anxiety inducing because there was a lot
Yeah.
of like things one after another, after another, after another. But I was like, I at no point did I like freak out. Did I because I get anxiety, like my heart wasn't palpitating. I was really like just what's next? What do we do next? Okay, who can I call? Where do I need to go? What do you need me to? I kept telling my husband, what do you want me to do? What do you need me to do right now? Because he was handling all the business. I'm really grateful for him. Can I say? I try not to say nice things to his face because then he gets all big headed. So I got to keep him humble, keep him humble. But like he really came through. Well, he always does, but like I was super grateful. And that's maybe why I wasn't worried because I'm like, I know he's got this under control. What I need to worry about is making sure the dog stays healthy and safe and kept making sure my husband drank water and we all stayed hydrated. So um but I just was really like I would have never handled it this way, the tiff of like 10 years ago. I don't know if it's from traveling so often and having things come up and realizing like you can't control it, just figure it out, or I don't know. But I was just like, man, gave myself a high five. We've grown, sis. We have grown. I was pretty excited about that. So that was my adventure. That was my adventure. The brain.
Love it.
It was fun. But we had a great week. I had a great week. I loved it. So much
Awesome.
fun.
Right on. Right on.
What'd you do this
Gosh.
week?
Well, I actually got to work from home most of it. It was
Nice.
cool. I had a good class in Stockton with a community bank there in Stockton on a Monday, and we were talking about communication skills, and we spent a lot of time talking about Myers-Briggs and personality theory, and that's my bag. So I
Yeah.
love getting
Yeah.
into that and working with some folks that I used to work with at the old bank that I worked with. And so just community banking is just it's so cool, just to get to meet the
Yeah.
people who, really are focused on, on their literally on their communities rather than, what the bottom line is from corporate, right? So,
Right. Right.
and then I got to teach from home and I was working with a tribal community, right? And so there were folks from 5 or 6 different tribes and tribal agencies, and then some folks from Modoc County, right? So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, and they said hi, right? And so it was cool to hang out with them. And it was the resilience series that I created during the pandemic, but I've updated it to talk about some of the same issues, just in a different setting. And so it was real cool. And then Thursday worked with the other bank that I work with regularly, and then Friday, Saturday I was in my coaching class, right? So the coaching program that I'm in, that you were in, and
Mhm.
that was a good time. And then I had a gig on Saturday night at a brewery that we haven't worked at, that we haven't played at yet, and so that was definitely fun. new folks and new experiences, and they enjoyed us. They asked us back, and so it was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, we had a good time. And then yesterday we had a lot. We went to Home Depot, right?
Ooh, ooh.
My wife just looked at me like, "No, we didn't do that." But we, he said, "Watch your mouth." But no, we did some work around the yard, and we got her garden ready for a fall planting, which is
Nice.
and I always every time I look at it after the fact, I'm like, damn, this looks really nice. I should have took a picture before because I mean it looked nice before, but it looks like it's legit ready for wonderful growth, right? So, but, those those things that you do, and my football team wasn't playing yesterday, so it wasn't necessarily a I didn't have to worry about if they were winning or checking my scores. Just a little fantasy football. I lost anyway, so it's fine. But what are you gonna do? But
You
then
win some, you lose some.
right, absolutely. So yeah, so it was a cool weekend. I'm actually here again. I'm not traveling this week either. Next week I start traveling again. I'm down in the Bay Area and things like that. So, but this this week should be pretty relaxed. I just have to go to Sac State and do a class there on Thursday. But
Nice.
other than that, I'm here chilling. Well, not chilling, working, right? But
Right.
that's a mind state. We that's definitely something to talk about too. So, but yeah, so Tiff, I had a question for you.
All right, I'm ready for it.
So, if there was, well, is there a cartoon character that you identify with, right? Or and strive to emulate, or just to that just really resonated with you, which cartoon character would that be?
Um, ooh, that's a really good question. I I'm actually gonna go with the Roadrunner. I'm gonna go with the
Okay.
Roadrunner.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna go with the Roadrunner for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm always on the go. I'm always on the go. Even when I think I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a pretty chill week, like what I would consider a pretty chill week is what other people would consider probably a logistical nightmare because I'm always on the go. The second, the second thing I think that I why I'm the Roadrunner is that I'm oftentimes oblivious or unscathed by the disasters that are happening around me. Like I don't give a whole lot of energy to what other people are thinking or doing for the most part. And I say for the most part because I'm also a human being, but for the most part, I think I'm pretty I just my life keeps going and I keep beep beep, just beeping through life without really paying a lot of attention to maybe what other people like if it doesn't affect me, I keep on moving. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if I
Yeah,
if I can help, if I can help or whatever, I keep going regardless of what's happening around me. I keep going. And so I'm gonna go with the Roadrunner. That's what I would think.
yeah. Or Dory from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming, just
Just
keep
keep
swimming.
swimming. Actually, I that would be another good one because I also can't remember anything. So I have a horrible memory. So Dory would be a great second pick for me. You just keep
There you
moving.
go.
You just
Yeah,
keep moving. But I would say the Roadrunner, because the Roadrunner always seems to be happy. They pop in, they go meet me, and then they just
yeah.
keep it moving. That's pretty much how my life is these days. So
Cool.
what about
I
you?
love
Well,
it.
who would you be cartoon character wise?
I have always strived to be Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny?
Yeah,
Okay.
just because Bugs is just always cool, calm, funny, right? Just like you said, going with the flow. If anything gets in his way or anybody gets in his way, he always seems to come out on top on those
Yeah.
situations and always knows what to do in those situations. And so, it's just life is fluid for a guy who, digs a hole and ends up somewhere else and thinks he's in Pismo Beach. That's kind of me, right? Hey, I thought we were in Pismo, right? We're in the middle of the desert, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of been my life and been interesting. And then when he flies off the handle, he flies off the handle. And so it's instructive to recognize, you don't want to saw off Florida from the rest of the country, although that wouldn't always be a bad thing. But,
Yeah.
metaphorically, right?
Metaphorically.
Just to breathe and so you don't end up in Alcatraz, right? So
Right.
but
Right.
no, Bugs has always been my guy. Just always seemed like he just had it under control. So that and Popeye when I was a kid, like, that's how I love spinach. And that was how my mom got me to eat spinach was watching Popeye beat the crap out of people. Right. So those cartoons that we grew up with, and they just, I mean, even like Dragon Ball Z, I mean, yeah, they're fighting, but it's just always, you never see the
Right.
right, and it's just always a flurry of arms, right? So I don't know.
It's funny. You know how I know we're old? We both
Ah,
went to Looney Tunes. we both we both went to Looney Tunes. But I guess we grew up with that. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's an interesting question. I'm gonna have to ponder that one a little. I'm curious what other people might say. Who do they relate to?
Yeah. What's your cartoon character? Who do you relate to? You
Yeah.
know, send us your responses
Yeah.
in the comments below or at Facebook or Instagram, wherever you engage with us, right? Send us your comments of, who would you identify with in terms of your cartoon character?
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and I'm kind of always laughing at my questions. I think about the questions when I'm like relaxing and listening to music, and so almost all of my questions have been music related. But I have a question.
Mhm.
If you had a song or a clip of a song that played every time you walked in the room, what would be like your intro music?
My walk-up music.
Yep.
That's something that I think about. I've thought about a lot. Just no, being an old athlete, right?
Yeah.
It's cool going to games and walk-up music really started after I'd stopped playing sports, right? So I mean, there's kids these days. I mean, you're seeing clips of kids in T-ball with walk-up music.
Yeah.
Well, if I had walk-up music back then, it would have been awesome. I would have, I just, if I so it depends, right? So like if I used to listen to Public Enemy
Mhm.
before games. The best season I ever had, my senior year, I listened to Public Enemy before games and I hit almost 400, right? And
Mm.
so it just would fire me
Yeah.
up, especially Welcome to the Terror Dome. That was just for some reason it just hyped me up. But I think if I was to do it like on a professional level, it'd probably be a Rage Against the Machine song, right? And
Okay.
People of the Sun, just the beginning. I love that, you know. But in terms of like walking like into a classroom, right? I probably, would if I had to who I want to be, what I want to be, or just to who I am, probably something like from the 70s, right? It's something funky, right? Like I don't know, something Isaac Hayes, right?
Okay.
Yeah, from Hot Buttered Soul, right? Just at the beginning of, and they used his samples a lot in hip hop, which is where, a lot of my stuff comes from, right? But yeah, that or yeah, so yeah, I'd probably be that or a Tribe Called Quest song, right? So but yeah, so and that's what I play music in my interludes
Mhm.
during breaks and things like that. So I have a
Yeah.
whole mix of songs that I play, and people, oh, we love your music. I'm like, yeah, well, I kind of curate music like that. So yeah, it's a great question. How about you? What would be your walk-up song?
I put so much thought into this. I put literally no thought into this, but the song that always comes back up for me is Lil Jon. Turn down for what? That's it.
Hmm,
Just I think that encapsulates my whole spirit. Just the turn down for what? Because I'm always full of energy. I get pumped up. I, that's it. I got no other thought process behind it. Every time I hear that song, I get like that's my jam to walk into a room, and it I think prepares people for what's about to go down.
Oh, all right. It's about to go down.
It's
All right.
about
Yeah.
to go down. So that's my song. That's my walk-in song, which is funny because I don't know when I've last listened to that whole song. I don't know if I've like listened to the whole song. I mean, I do, but I've never purposely been like, I'd like to put on the stylings of Little John and here turn down for what? It's not like one of my go-to songs in terms of like my life, but for walking into a room, I think that would be the one that would really prepare people for what's about to go down.
The edited version, of course, right? Because we
The
are
edited version. Well,
professionals.
I just want the intro. Turn
Because we
down
are,
for what?
yeah.
That's it. That's all I need. He can say it one time and then the beat. That's it. That's all I need. We don't need to know any of the shenanigans that happen after that. I
Mhm.
think that's perfectly professionally appropriate. And yes, that would be
Yeah.
my song. I
Very cool.
also curate music though for like activities, and I always have my like a little like a little Bluetooth speaker with me, and I always have like stations that I listen to.
Mhm.
And I remember a woman coming up to me at one of my classes, and she's like, "What you know about Teddy Pendergrass?" I know all
Yeah.
about Teddy Pendergrass, but
Yeah.
I play a variety of music. You know, I play music in different languages. I try to like really incorporate a lot of different, musical tastes,
Hmm.
edited versions of all of them, of course. But
Hmm.
um, and sometimes I'm really surprised that people will come up and say, I hadn't heard that song in years, and you took me back to another time. And I said, well, good. I hope it was a good time. So music, I think, is so important for life. It's
Oh,
such
oh, absolutely.
it can energize you. It can I will tell you this. I am the queen of like sad. If you ever need like a crying playlist, if you're like, I'd like something heart-wrenching that will have me crying for hours, I'm like, say less. Let me curate you.
Hmm.
That's like therapeutic for me. When I'm feeling low, like the only way for me to feel better is to get as low as I can. And then I can feel better once I've like cried all the tears or whatever I'm going through. Like, let me get all of this out of my system. And then once I'm clear, I'm like, all right, done with that. Let's move on.
Well,
So,
and with that in mind, what's the saddest song that you have?
oh gosh, well, okay, it depends on what I'm sad about. It depends really like what I'm going through, but I really love like sad like love songs, like Lana Del Rey. And I always forget the name of the song. I always have to call my son AJ because I can never remember. She has an unreleased song. It only came out on YouTube. You can't find it on like Spotify or anything like that. Never let me go is the song, I think is what it's
Hmm.
called. Never let me go is the song from Lana. And I love every time I sing that, it takes me to like the darkest sadness I've ever felt. Um Another like super super sad song. It's in Spanish. It's by uh I can't remember his name. Celce Pino, I think I might be saying that wrong. I might have that
Hmm.
completely wrong, but it's the song is called Aunque no sea conmigo, and it's with Cafe Tacuba, and it's a song basically I want you to be happy even if it's not with me. Although I would never sing that song. If you're not with me, I hope you're miserable for the rest
That's
of your
right.
life. That's kind of my vibe. Um, but the
I
song
hope your
is
house blows up.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I hope you think about me every day and your butt itches. Like that kind of that's how I feel about it.
Hmm.
But it's a really beautiful, beautiful song, and it's really just full of like again sadness and hope. Like it's just a really beautiful song. So
Hmm.
um that one is one of my favorites. But I mean there's a lot of dark and twisty songs that I really
Oh,
love.
yeah.
Love Drought by Beyonce. Again, I try not to give Beyonce too many shout outs, but she's got some really good songs. But Love Drought, there's like a part in that song where or no, Sandcastles, sorry. Sandcastles is the one I'm
Hmm.
thinking of. But in that song, there's like a part where she's singing and her voice cracks. And every time
Hmm.
that voice cracks, I'm like, Like it just gets me. And it was funny because
Hmm.
my son AJ and I would listen to that and he would be like, "Why do you always get so emotional?" I said, "When you've had your heart broken, AJ, that voice cracking, you feel that on like a whole new level." And so now that
Hmm.
he's older, he's like, "Mom, I get it now." And I said, "See, I told you, I told you." So those are just a few that I'm thinking of, but I have like a whole playlist. Again, I have to curate
Hmm.
it to your pain, whatever you're going through. But yeah, I love a good sad playlist when you need to like go through it. And that's actually what I usually name it, going through it. When you're going through it, I need to go all the way through it and then I can let it leave it behind and move on with my life.
Wow. Nice.
Don't ask me to cheer you up. That's not my jam. I'll make you cry.
No, yeah, no, I hear you. And like you said, there's different sad songs for different things, right? Like,
Mhm.
if I'm mad, if I want to beat myself up, I'll play Sober by Tool, except
Oh,
the yeah,
that's
the
one of my
the
favorites.
the Stain version, the live Stain version, Aaron Lewis just sings the crap out of that song, right? And it's acoustic, I think. So it just hits different than just I mean, because the Tool version, it's just like there's a house falling on you, right? You can't, but and then if it's like my heart's broken, so very hard to go by Tower Power, the saddest horn section you've ever heard in your life. Just play that song, and if you're not in tears when that horn is just wailing, right? It's just and then then sometimes when I'm just in a mood, right? I'll play Street Spirit by Radiohead, right?
Oh,
And that's a it's the end of the bends, right? And it's just, I mean, the images that they talk about, just cracked eggs, dead birds, right? And screaming as they
yes.
fight for life and just and all of that. But at the end of it, he says, immerse yourself in love.
Mhm.
And it just seems to just a sliver of sunlight, right? And just helps me to crawl out. Okay, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Let's go. Right. So
Yeah.
it's a yeah. So there's so many you could spend all day talking about them.
I
Right.
know. I'm like, I was already thinking, oh, also Three Libras from A Perfect Circle is another good one that just
Mm-hmm.
gets to me. And Mariah Carey, I'm not even gonna, We Belong Together. Oh, that one. I'd say that one, my whole chest. My whole chest. I mean,
So we're going to have a playlist for
we're
this
gonna have to
of sad songs, right? So I will keep track of that, and we will have a sad song playlist,
going
and
through
uh,
it.
and it'll
Yeah.
be up on Instagram and Facebook. So just in case you wanna live where we live sometimes, right? So How to Disappear Completely is another one from Radiohead. So yeah, we could
Ugh.
love that. Anyways,
All right.
so moving out of
All
that,
right.
coming out of the
Yes.
dark, right? Celine Dion would say, I don't listen to that song very much though, but
Yeah.
it's all right. Cool. So, it's just sometimes, you're in that mindset, right? You just want to shut everything else out and just, figure out how to just really be with yourself, right? And then, but that's not something you can carry on into places where you're teaching about motivation or
Right.
effective engagement,
Right.
right? And so,
Right.
it's sometimes we need that shift in mindset and to be aware of how we're feeling, where we're feeling, and how it's affecting other people, right? And which is
Mhm.
definitely, what we're here to talk about today. So, Tiff, what what's your thoughts on, the concept of mindsets?
So I spend a lot of time in every class, every topic, almost everything that I come to mind. And I talk about three sets. I call them choose your set. Like what when you can't change anything, what can you change? And you can change your mindset, you can change your skill set, you can change your tool set. Those are like the three sets that I actually got that from our coaching program. I got that from our instructors in the coaching program. So when I think about mindset, if you can't change your circumstances, if you can't change the reality, if you can't change what's happening around you, can you change the way that you think about it? That's again the power of mindset. So thinking about what you're thinking, engaging in self-reflection, being open-minded, being flexible. Like, how do you approach things? If the way that you have approached the situation, problem, challenge, is not working for you any longer, like, how do you think about it in a different way? Um, and then, of course, skill set is if you can't solve it with your current skill set, can you learn something new to approach it in a different way? And then, of course, when it comes to tool set, what I usually am referring to is like, what resources do you have? What resources do you need? Who could you reach out to? That's the tool set part of it. But I think of all three of those, the most powerful one and also the most pervasive one is your mindset. How you are thinking about a situation, a circumstance, a relationship has a very direct impact on your approach to managing it. If I, again, I was talking with a friend of mine, we were talking about infatuation yesterday, about like new love and like how exciting and, you know, the rose colored glasses and everything's all amazing and wonderful and exciting when you have that new love. But it also like blinds you to like red flags and seeing behaviors. Why? Because your mindset is, oh, this is so beautiful and exciting, and I'm so like into it that your mind is not seeing maybe some of the other things that might cause you in a different mindset to have pause and like, ooh, that's kind of funky. We justify it. So mindset, I think, is really, really powerful. And I also think underutilized because if you're not thinking about what you're thinking, you're just thinking it, then you get stuck in patterns of behavior, which takes you back, by the way, to the drama triangle. Go back to those episodes. Because if I'm thinking about something from a victim mindset, then again, I feel like I'm helpless and hopeless and I don't have any control over it. If I'm thinking about things from a persecutor mindset, I might be very blameful and pointing the finger. If I'm coming from the rescuer mindset, I might think everybody needs me and I'm like indisposable and I'm taking care of everybody instead of taking care of myself. I mean, and that's just three examples of mindsets, but I think it just what you think about and how you think about it impacts your action and your behavior and what you do next. And I don't think enough people take control over the mindset. They just go back to blaming the circumstances, blaming the other person, again, getting back into the drama versus saying to themselves, you know what? Maybe I need to think about this from a different perspective or think about what I'm thinking about and asking myself if this is the most helpful approach or is there something else I could do to maybe look at it a different way or be open minded or flexible, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, the mindset you're in, it, it can open you to learning new things. It can keep you stifled from learning new things. It can affect how you interact with other people or, you know, any ways to move forward, right? It's funny, we were talking about that this weekend, right? Just in those levels of learning and change, right? The DILTS model, right? And it talks about, those things that you said, just to share it there on the screen, just I just wanted to pull that up. You see, right, those 5 levels of learning and change, right? So, you know, you have to have the right environment, right, to be able to make that change. Sometimes it's hard if you're in an environment where there is no um encouragement to change, right? If you're, in a group of friends or family or, where people say, oh, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, and it ain't going to get any better, so just deal with it and life sucks. And if that's where you are, sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And then our behavior, how we react to that environment. So, I mean, and there's some people who say, no, I'm going to do better. And, maybe I didn't have the best parents or the best environment, but I'm going to get through that. And other people who say, well, this is normal. Right. And then capabilities, you said, the tool set, the skill set, right? What are the things that we bring to the table to overcome and to be receptive to change? Right. And then what are our motivations, our values and beliefs, right? What are the things that we want to do with our lives and our purpose, right? It's such an important piece, and all those lead to that identity in the sense of who we are and how we want to interact with things, right? And it just really hit home. I love models, and then this
Mhm.
model, I just learned it this weekend, and it just resonated with me so much, right? And just thinking about, sometimes, you know how it is, Tiff. I mean, if we're building classes, right? That's the thing. People don't necessarily understand how much time and it takes to build classes, right? And to, you know, really have coherent and functional classes. I mean, it's one thing just to talk about stuff and have one screen of this and then one screen of that, but it always goes better when it's flowing and it's intentional, right?
Mhm.
And if, and so 1 hour, what is it? 1 hour of instruction is like 10 hours of development, right? And so
Mhm.
a lot of people think, well, you just go out there and train the same stuff. I was just on a call with the county this morning where, we're talking about, crisis de-escalation, but it's with their specific group of folks, right? So, and I asked them, I said, are these people on the phone? Do they meet with people one-on-one? Are they lobby staff? Are they people who meet virtually? Because those are all different um, places where we interact with folks and deal with their crises, right? And that that environment that we're in affects the way that we react to that if we aren't prepared for it, right? And so, that's such an important thing. But sometimes, I don't know, they work until 11:30, 12 o'clock at night getting that stuff done, and you're tired, your dog tired, you wake up in the morning, last thing you want to do is get up and talk to anybody. But you know at the same time, I love what I do, and it's energizing to be there because that's my purpose, right? And just that
Yes.
idea of purpose is part of my motivation and beliefs, and really has installed with me my identity of who I am and what I'm put on, to earth, that purpose driven life, things like that. I recognize
Right.
what my purpose is, and just from seeing reactions from other people and how I feel about being successful in those things, in those interactions and those interventions. And so, I mean, it's exhausting, but it's not frustrating exhausting. It's just I'm tired because I put in a good day's work, and maybe more than just a day's work. If
Mhm.
I'm working on a
Yeah.
weekend, that's cool. I mean, yeah, I have to work on my work-life balance a little bit, and I'm working on my work-life balance, right? But but at the same time, when I'm in the midst of, in the groove, right? It doesn't matter what I'm getting or not getting. I know that there's a reason for doing it, and it never discourages me from doing it. It just, like I said, I need to manage my time a little better, but that also is being more self-aware, being more emotional intelligent about, what are the other things in my life that are important to me. Even those things that may not necessarily ascribe specifically to my purpose in life, what are those things that are important to me that should not take a back seat to that idea of personal fulfilling, especially if you're parents, right? And if you're a spouse, right? There's things, it's not always about you as much as we'd like it to be, right? But,
Mhm.
how do we make sure that those other areas in our life that we have decided are important to us as well are balanced,
Yeah.
right? And so, and it goes either way, right? Sometimes people haven't found their purpose. Some people, their purpose is, the only thing that matters to them, and that can affect us if we're not careful, right? So being intentional with that place of where we are, what we're doing, what's important to us, who we need to be when we are engaged with folks is so powerful. So that model just really, really hit me. It's
Mhm.
Dilts. Did I say Hilts? Because I've watched the Great Escape. It's one of my favorite movies. Steve McQueen is Hilts, right? But this is Dilt, right? Dilts, right? And so if anybody's interested, take a look at it. It really does make sense.
I think every single one of those levels too really does again connect back to your mindset.
Mhm.
And again, that is what motivates a lot of your behavior is how you're thinking about a situation. So, again, going back to like my calamity this weekend, my very adventurous adventure that I had, in my mindset that I had in that moment, my belief system was that this is just a bump in the road. It's going to get resolved. I have the means to, fix this. It's not the end of the world. Um, and, one of the things when I was sharing with, my friends, I was keeping a couple of my friends updated on our situation. One of them was ready to come do a rescue mission. She's like, "Do you need me to come get you?" I said, "No, we're fine. We'll be okay." And but my mindset in the moment was, I have tons of amazing weekends. I have tons of like travel that goes with no problem. It is bound to happen every now and then that something's got to go wrong. And I just am due. I'm due for something to go wrong. And this is like the toll that you pay when you spend your life on the road, that flights are going to get canceled, roads will be closed, your car is going to break down, you're going to get a flat tire, your reservation isn't there. Like lots of things can happen along the way. And I was just due for a wild weekend. That's the way I was thinking about it. It was my belief that it can't always go right. And so I think that belief helped me get into problem solving, saying, okay, it's happening. Let's fix it. Let's figure it out. Like what options do we have right now? Um, my identity, going back to again this model, my identity is as a problem solver. So I don't want to dwell on the situation. I can acknowledge the reality that it's happening, being stressed, being upset, being overwhelmed doesn't change the reality.
Mhm.
My truck is still broke down, whether I'm upset or not upset. But what feels better? It feels better to just, again, it's happening. Let's figure out a solution. I'm a problem solver. So in that identity of a problem solver, let's brainstorm some options. What can we do right now? I can't change how hot it is. I can't change that. Again, we're stuck at the border. I can't change that the mechanic doesn't have the parts. Like none of that is within my control. So I'm not going to focus my energy there. I'm just going to say, okay, how are we going to make this happen? So
Yeah.
I think for people, again, maybe the work life balance, you're talking about having work life balance, how people think about their identity as an employer, as a leader, or as, whatever it is, that dictates a lot of how they look at work life balance. And so if I see myself as I'm the CEO of this company and that's my identity and who I am, I'm a CEO before anything else, then I'm going to choose that work over maybe family, friends, downtime, other decision making that I do because I'm a CEO and this is what CEOs do. If I see myself as a parent before anything else, if I say my most important job is raising these kids or raising this child or whatever that looks like, then I'm going to make those decisions to say, sorry, work. I'm a parent. I've got to take care of these kids. And that
Mhm.
mindset and that identity of who I am is going to dictate what I prioritize. There's no perfect answer. Whether you're a CEO, a parent, or a partner or a friend or whatever it is, like choose your own adventure.
Mhm.
But again, that mindset really does help gravitate you towards one behavior or another. And sometimes people become trapped in that of, but I'm a CEO and I have to at the expense of this versus saying I'm a CEO and I'm this other thing. How do I find the balance between the two?
Yeah.
It it's wait, how you think about it.
Yeah.
I struggled for years with work-life balance. I struggled. And I remember like, especially when I first came to our mutual organization, I figured like I have to always be available because if I'm not always available, they're going to find somebody else. And so my identity really became, or my belief was that I have to respond immediately. I have to say yes to everything. I have to, be involved as many things as I can so I can grow my value at the expense of everything else. I'm just going to say everything else.
Yeah.
Sleep,
Sure.
joy,
Mhm.
family,
Health.
it was
Yeah.
health,
Yeah. Hmm.
well-being, you know, and I remember, again, I'm very blessed to have like healthy relationships in my life where My husband like turned to me one day and said, "Why are you returning an email at 11 p.m.?" And I'm like, "Because I have to, because I'm like at this point so high strung because I have to." He's like, "Actually, you don't. Like, what would be different for you if you did this at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
versus right now? You're in bed, you're supposed to be sleeping, you're tired all the time. Like, why do you need to return this email at 11 p.m.?" And I'm like, "Oh, humbling, right? I guess I don't need to reply at 11 p.m. Maybe this can happen at 8 a.m. when, business hours." And guess what? I started returning emails in the morning and nobody died. Like nothing changed. But we put again, it's the mindsets, what we think and how we think about things that really does dictate that behavior. And environment does have a huge role to play in that as well. And again, who's surrounding you? Because if I had had somebody maybe that was again very career driven, like did you reply? Did you reply? Then I maybe would have approached it a different way. I would have thought about it differently, but it does make a huge difference. And the like biggest thing I want people to take away from this podcast today is like you get to decide your mindset. Nobody chooses it for you. Are there challenges? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, nobody controls what you think but you. And the beautiful thing about being an adult or even a child or a young adult or an old fogey or whatever you want to call it is that at any point you get to decide what you think about. You get to change your mind. You don't have to be stuck to anything. You can sometimes say, you know what? Maybe I've been wrong for the last 50 years. Maybe I can think about this differently. Maybe everything that I've heard my whole life is not true. Maybe the way that my parents raised me was not the right way to be raised, and I can maybe rethink it. Maybe the way I raised my children was not the right way, and I can rethink it. Like you have the opportunity to think about what you're thinking at any given point. And I think that's like the most empowering thing in the whole universe is that you don't have to be stuck to what you've believed in the past. You can change your mind at any time.
I hear you, and I think it's so true, and I've done the same thing you did. I've trained in Fresno County and supposed to be in Modoc County the next day, right? So that's a 7.5 hour trip, right? And then another time I went from Modoc County to San Luis Obispo County, which is another 7.5 hour trip. And because I didn't want to say no, I didn't want to turn, I had that scarcity mindset. I didn't grow up with money, right? And so, being on my own, hanging my own shingle, the identity of, you know, who I am and my purpose also clashed with my identity as a breadwinner, right? As, the provider of the house. So how can I say no um and still do those things that are important to me, right? And so it's been a process. It's been something that I've worked on and am now just now getting to the point where I can give people availability, and that it's okay for me not to give them every day, right? I'm trying not to give Fridays if I don't have to, right? So I can spend Fridays with doing the administrative work that goes into this, right? But
Yeah.
then you have people who don't necessarily understand, right? And so that's a challenge, right? If we're going to talk about the fact that you can choose, which is powerful, we have to talk about why people have a hard time choosing, right? So that identity piece up at the top is definitely important. And some people never get there, right? Jung says we don't truly get to have a full understanding of who we are until we're like in our mid 40s, early 50s, right? Which is crazy to think about, right? And you have those people who I'm sure of who I knew who I was when I was in my 20s, and now I realize I didn't know shit. you know? And
Same,
I didn't know half
same.
the stuff I thought I did back then, right? And so there's so many things that I've learned over. I mean, I feel like I'm still the same person I was when I was 15. It's just I have a little more self-confidence, a little more self-esteem, a little more patience and experience, right? So all of those things have really coalesced into me being who I am today, and I can't wait to see who I'm going to be in a couple of years, right? But
Mhm.
Jung talks about the reason it's hard to deal with that, right? All that societal pressure, the pressure that's put on us from an early age, but I mean, as a child, I mean, the things we learn from, our parents and our family members, right? And, those folks who we see as important and seminal in our growth. I mean, Freud says everything we learn from the time we're born to 11 or 12 makes up our entire personality. Jung pretty much says that too. Most of our character, right? Our value systems, our, our morals, our sense of right or wrong, right? We carry that into our adulthood. And so we have those pressures that are given us. And then as we get older, peer pressure, significant others, right? Other teachers, first bosses, professors, then our spouses, and even our children. What role do we play for all of them where we are not necessarily always living to our purpose, but we're living based off of what other people want and need us to be? And there's some folks who go their entire life. I'm sure you've met. I've met some, some folks who just live their entire life for other people and have never really stopped to think about themselves. My grandmother used to cook every holiday. She would cook for all the family of her six brothers and sisters. And so all of us would be at one house. She'd cook and then she'd fall asleep while we're eating. She didn't even eat. She just fell asleep. That was always her. She giving, 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 right? To the point where she never took time for herself. And she died when she was 66, but we thought she was, a viejita, right? She was an old lady, right? Because she had given so much energy to other people. And just to see her, well, she lived a full life. I'm 52. If I die in 14 years, I'm not going to be happy, right? I mean, I think I want to live that full life. How do I create that environment for me to be able to thrive at 66, not to feel like my work here is done, right?
Mhm.
And so just thinking about, being aware of who you are and the pressures that other people put on you. What if you had, and I'm sure you probably have those people in your life that, oh, well, your truck keeps breaking down. Why do you live all the way over there? Why do you have two houses? Why would you live somewhere where you can't, where you're remote and you can't do those things? I wouldn't be able to do that. I couldn't do it. I don't know if you've ever run into those people who do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to call them haters because we don't always hate them. We love them, but they don't necessarily have the same mindset that we have or understand why we do what we do. Why do you travel so much for work? Right. And, I don't know how you could live without having, those, things like benefits and a stable retirement plan, or just you couldn't do it. And so if you are reactive to your environment, right, and you haven't been able to grow out of that, how do you get to identity? Right? How do you
Yeah.
get to that place where so you can do it, you can make changes. Tell that to a 15-year-old kid whose parents tell him, I want you to be a doctor, right? I was very, my dad wanted to be the anesthesiologist. What was his point? He says, you can go in, have um, two or three surgeries that you set up anesthesia for, and then you go play golf the rest of the week and make a ton of money. Right. But that was his focus, right? My focus was how do I help other people, right? And so I got into social work, which means I'm never going to be rich, but at the same time, I did become a doctor, just a different type of doctor, right? And so, but he sees me who I am now, and I couldn't be more proud of you. Cool. That's not what you were saying when I was 15, but maybe you've had some growth. Maybe you had some growth as well, right? So it's that environment that allows you to have that self exploration, but how many people don't have that? How many people are stifled by, you know, that environment of don't, the limit is the sky rather than sky's the limit, right? And so,
Mhm.
how do we get people to move past that? Because and in human services, I mean, how many of our clients are limited by their environment, the family they grew up in, or their educational opportunities, or even the neighborhoods or apartment complexes they live in. Oh, well, you don't have to do that. Just hang out with us, right? Just you don't have to job search. Just tell them to do this, right? Or don't worry, if you go on sanction, if they sanction you, we'll just we'll take care of each other. All right. I've had
Yeah.
people who have quit their jobs because it was an identity change. They went to working, and the rest of their friends who they used to spend time with all the time just backed away. I had a client whose best friend was her childcare provider. So they both had jobs. They were both active and in compliance. And she had to quit her job because her best friend didn't want to be her child care provider anymore because she says, I'm here with these kids all day and you're not here to do any of that. Just because you have a job, you think you're better than me. It changed their identities,
Yeah.
right? And I hate to use that term crabs in a barrel, but you see that behavior, right? When somebody don't think you're any better than me, or, or don't think you're anything special just because, I remember who you are. I know who you are, right? And all those things like that, that can be so stifling, and it really limits people from doing what they want to do and being who they want to be and living where they want to live and loving who they want to love. Right. It's there's so many different possibilities there. This concludes part one of our episode. Stay tuned for part two, coming Tuesday to all major podcast platforms.